TruckerDump, episode 133. In today's show, we're going to talk about some recalls, because there always seems to be recalls in the show. How about some new emission systems? Great, just what we need. Truck parking issues? Of course. How about the new trucker tax situation? I just heard about it, and quite frankly, it freaked me the heck out. How about the truck convoy that happened in DC recently? You know, I've got some mixed feelings on that. I'll share them with you, and you can tell me if I'm wrong or not. How about driver pay? It's up, right? That's cool. What isn't cool is driver suicide. We're going to talk about that a little bit too. And how would you guys feel about a drowsy driving test? Well, guess what? It's coming around the pike. You're going to want to stay tuned to hear about that. And here's something cool. OverdriveOnline.com has issued a playlist for truckers that is just a bunch of trucker music. So I'll point you to that. In the Trucker Grub section, Nick's going to point us to a cool new restaurant. Well, it's not new to me anyway. And in the feedback section, driver Dave, Michael, Ab, and Martin talk about a variety of different subjects. And today's main topic is a trucker gives thanks. That would be me giving thanks. And you're going to want to stick around for a really weird story that happened to me recently. One of the weirdest things that's ever happened to me as a trucker, and quite frankly, I felt kind of in danger, honestly. Today's show is sponsored by The Escort by Citadel Fleet Safety. Hit it.
Welcome to TruckerDump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com, resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey there, Trucker Dumpers. How you been? You know, I think I've got some new listeners to the show because, well, my numbers have actually been up a little bit. And I think that's probably due to the Talk CDL podcast with Troy and Johnny Acid. And they've mentioned my name a couple of times, and I'm thinking maybe some people have come over and had a listen. If you're new to the show, my name's Todd McCann. I'm your host. I'm a 21-year company truck driver. Never been an owner-operator, so if you're looking for that kind of info, you're in the wrong place. However, I am obviously the host of this podcast, and I'm the author of 2 trucking ebooks. One's called Trucking Life, and one is called How to Find a Great Truck Driving Job. You can find both of those and everything else I do at AboutTruckDriving.com. And be sure to check out the Talk CDL podcast. Those guys have a lot of laughs over there. And unlike the Trucker Dump, it's a very regular podcast. Just like my bowels. Hey, what do you expect? It is called the Trucker Dump podcast, right? So, hey, I hope you've been staying busy out there on the road. I have had an interesting time since the last time we met. My truck has been in the shop twice since the last podcast. The first time I was in Columbus, and I had a DEF problem. Well, I'm not deaf, but you know what I mean. Diesel exhaust fluid. Something was registering weird on my truck. I didn't really notice anything really bad, but it derated my truck about 25%. And, you know, I had some light load, so it wasn't too bad. Just every once in a while, I could feel that the torque wasn't quite there. You know, like when that turbo kicked in, it didn't kick in quite as hard. But I had to go get that taken care of. And it ended up being, they said they have a lot of problems with, and this is on an international LT, by the way. The dealer said they have a lot of problems with these DEF units, and the sensors in them are very sensitive. Imagine that. They're called a sensor, and they're sensitive. Anyway, ideally, you're supposed to keep these DEF tanks between a full and half. And I've let it go below that sometimes, and it's never been an issue, but I had always heard that you're supposed to keep it between a half and full. And actually what had happened is the auto shutoff didn't work on one of the pumps one time, and I was, you know, messing around doing my windshield or cleaning my windshield or whatever, and that DEF pump overflowed. And it actually worked fine for another couple of days, and then I started getting those messages. And the dealer said it was probably that it got overfilled and it just screwed up that sensor. So anyway, I was kind of lucky in that I only lost about, I don't know, maybe 8 hours of time, and most of that was just waiting to get the truck in the shop. Of course, I binged Netflix while I was doing that. I think I was watching The Walking Dead. Man, what a depressing day that was. Anyway, the second time, was actually for my bunk heater. And of course, just before I got my truck in the shop for the DEF thing, I'd had beautiful weather, so I didn't really have a reason to run the heater. Well, of course, as soon as I get out of the shop, it gets cold that night. I try to run the APU heater, the auxiliary power unit heater, and it just blows regular temperature, whatever's outside. There's no heat whatsoever to it. Well, I had to deal with the cold for a couple nights, but it wasn't that big of a deal. I tried to get it into my local shop when I was home, but they were backed up and couldn't do it, so I had to hit the road again, deal with it just a couple of days until I got into a dealer. Thing is, I get in there, and I'm there the whole day. I get there early in the morning, and I get there the whole day. They go home at like 9 o'clock at night, something like that, 9 or 10. And the mechanic finally comes in like 6 or 7 in the evening and says, hey, we figured out what your problem is. It's batteries. I say, it's not batteries. They go, yeah, these things happen. It's batteries sometimes. And I've actually been told that is true. It is sometimes batteries. But in this case, I knew it was not batteries. Because I told him my APU stays running all night long when the cooling side is on. And that actually takes more power from what I understand. At least that's my experience. It seems like the heater will always run longer than the AC will, at least in my unit. But, it'll run for 9-10 hours without any issue, and then before it has to restart the truck and recharge the batteries. So I knew that wasn't it. And he said, well, what seems to be the problem? And I said, well, it just won't heat. Apparently, he didn't even really know what the problem was. He just heard there was a problem with the heater. He didn't really know what was going on. So I just couldn't believe it. A whole night was wasted. And of course he said, well, we're going to have to diagnose that. And of course, only the day shift guy can do that. So I had to wait overnight. I was too lazy to go get a hotel, and I could sleep in the truck. So I just slept there on property. It was no big deal. Anyway, I come back the next day, and I was there for probably about 4 hours in the morning. And then they tell me, guess what it was? A fuse. Yes, a fuse. That's all it was. But, hey, I never claimed to be a mechanical genius, but even I know, well, I thought I knew that it couldn't have been a fuse because the blower back here works. The AC works just fine back here. It's just the heater, so it never dawned on me that it could be a fuse. Well, I guess there is a fuse that is just connected with the heater side of it. So, hey, just for future reference, now you know if you ever have a APU problem, at least the one I have with the battery power and everything, if it craps out on you and the heater doesn't work, but everything else works, tell them to check the fuse right away. Maybe you won't waste 24 hours of your day. Anyway. Like I said, it's been eventful. But I tell you what, the weirdest thing happened to me at the time of this recording, just yesterday. By the way, I forgot to tell you, I'm in Northfield, Minnesota on a 34-hour break doing this today. And actually, I was a really bad boy for a while. Well, not really, but it sounds bad when I first tell you. When I got here, the parking lot was jammed. Of course, there was some paid parking, but you know me, I'm a cheapskate. I'm not going to pay for that. So anyway, there was a pump that was broken, and I went inside and asked them if I could park at the fuel bay. Now, I know I've said a million times, don't park at the fuel bay, but hey, it was broken. And they said, yeah, you can spend all night there. We don't care. So I pulled on through the fuel bay or parked on the other side of it, like I had pulled out after fueling and was parked there. And I just figured if I sat up in the seat for a while, somebody would pull out, and I ended up getting the legal spot. Anyway, I was parked weird for a while in the fuel bay. It feels weird even though I had permission to do it. So anyway, where was that rat hole taking me? Oh yeah, the really weird thing that happened. Okay, get this. Yesterday, I'm at the Pilot, the Gateway Pilot in East St. Louis. I'm all happy and thrilled because I've got some Pilot rewards money, and I'm going to go spend it on Taco Bell. You know me, like I say, cheapskate. Rewards points are great. So I was in there just enjoying my meal when I hear this voice behind me, and this woman had sat down right behind me. My age, maybe a little bit older. She had a cane, and she just started talking to me. She just said, "Hey, what's your name?" I was like, Todd. And she goes, "What are you eating?" I was like, a chalupa. I was like, these are odd questions, And then she starts, I don't even know how to describe it. It was the weirdest thing. It was like she was talking in riddles. Everything was a question where she tried to make me guess things. It was just, it's like, you know what we're doing here? It's like, well, I don't even know you. What, are you really going to make me guess? I mean, I just couldn't figure it out. I was trying to be polite. Of course, I'm polite to everyone. Yeah, the evil overlord says that's a fault of mine. Anyway, this woman, she just keeps talking to me, and I'm really I can understand what she's saying. She's speaking clearly, but I'm not really understanding what she's saying. I mean, it's like, she just say the oddest things, she would say, yeah, what you eat there? And I'd say a chalupa, and she'd go, boom. And I'd go, I just kind of looked at her. I turned around and looked at her when she did that, and she winked at me. Okay, it wasn't like a sexy wink or anything, like she was, trying to flirt with me or anything, but it looked like kind of a like, ha, wink. And I was like, what is going on? But she kept doing it. Every time I would look back at her, she winked. And it was just weird. And she, like I said, she kept saying boom after everything she'd say. She'd go, boom. And then at one point, she started saying, she told me some Italian joke, and I didn't really get it. She said, what does the sound of gum on the wall sound like? And she said, made that popping noise. And I just looked at her and I said, I don't get it. And she goes, wop? And I said, I don't get it. She goes, oh. She goes, well, I'm Italian, and I'm from this family and this family. And I said, oh, okay. And, I'm just flabbergasted trying to figure out what she's talking about. And she says, clearly you don't know those names. You're not from around here. And I said, nope. She was like, yeah, my family's all Italian. And she was like a stress in Italian. And I know there's a mob element down there in St. Louis. So I think she was actually talking like she was related to the mob, because she was saying her dad was some big time dude. I think, like I said, it was really weird. It was just hard for me to understand what she was getting at and what her point was. That's weird enough. But where it even got weirder is she set her purse beside me and she goes, you know what that is? And I said, it's a purse. And she goes, yeah. You know what I want? And I said, not a clue. And she said, you don't know what that's for? And I said, nope. And then she goes, you know what this is? And she held up her jacket. And I go, it's a jacket. And she goes, she hung it over the back of my seat. And she goes, you know what that's for? And I said, oh, okay, I'm getting it. You want me to watch those while you go to the restroom or something, right? And she goes, boom. And kind of pointed at me like a gun finger. It was really weird. And I thought, what is wrong with this woman? Anyway, she did have a husband there. Wait, I think it was a husband. It was a guy. Yeah, it was a husband, because later on in the story. Anyway, you'll find out. He was kind of in and out. And so I really didn't think she was flirting with me. But then she stood up to go to the bathroom. And she starts to walk away. And she turns back and looks at me. And she points at her butt. Now, she's got, kind of a nice looking woman. But she's, got this, she's a pear shape. She's pear shaped. She's skinny up top, kind of big hips, and she pointed at her butt and she goes, you like that? And I said, I just looked at her and I said, ma'am, I've been married for 25 years. I have no opinion on that whatsoever. And she said, she goes, there's no black in that butt. And I thought, what is she talking about? She goes, that's all Italian. And I said, okay. And here's where it got bad. She turns around in the middle of the restaurant. Keep in mind, we are in East St. Louis. This is a highly black area. And for the record, if you're black, I don't know what to call you. When I talk about myself, I say I'm a white dude. So I say a black dude, whatever. This whole African American thing, I don't get it. I mean, unless you're first generation, I don't think any of us should call ourselves something American. We're all just Americans, right? I mean, I'm Irish American way back, but I don't call myself Irish American. I'm just an American. So unless your mom or dad came from Africa, I think you're just an American. So anyway, for this story, I'm talking about white people, black people. Okay. Basically, I am the only white person in the place except for her and her husband, who's kind of in and out. Anyway, she turns, she looks at me, and in a very loud voice, she says, "Yeah, I'm not too happy with the Granite City Police right now. This N-word stole $800 from me." You know what the N-word was, right? I tell you what, my eyes must have gotten huge, and something on my face must have showed, because I couldn't believe she said it. I mean, like I said, there were probably 10 black people in there, and me and her are the only white people. And she looked around so defiantly, like, she did not care one bit. And then she turned and she strolled and she walked out towards the bathroom. I was just shocked. I looked up and I looked over, and there was this elderly black woman who was kind of in the back by the subway there, and she works at Taco Bell. And I looked over at her, and she was giving me this look like, and I understood why, because I had been sitting there talking to this woman for like 10 minutes. Well, she had been talking to me anyway. It was just weird. And, I just looked at the woman and held up my hands like, and I even mouthed the words, "I don't know her, I don't know what she's doing, And then she kind of lightened up a little bit. Well, when the racist lady got back from the bathroom, she had the manager meeting her there, who was, of course, a black woman, and she told her that she was not welcome in there. And they had a little words back and forth, and you could tell that this white woman did not like it very much, but she did leave eventually. Of course, she was cursing the whole time and basically being a racist in general. But I tell you what, as soon as she got up and left, I walked over to that elderly black woman back in the corner, and I said, "I don't know who she is. She was just talking to me." I said, "I don't like people talking to me when I'm eating anyway," but she was talking all kinds of nonsense. I didn't even understand what she said. And I said, "I certainly don't condone what she said. I'm not with her. I don't even know her." And so she was kind of relaxed at that point. And, by that time we had walked together up to the manager of Taco Bell. So I got out of there scot-free, but man, I thought, that's not good at all. And I told the evil overlord about this, and she was like, she goes, "Why'd you watch your purse?" And I said, "Well, I don't know. It's just being nice. And, truckers do that all the time for each other." And I thought she was a trucker. Found out later she wasn't. But anyway, she goes, "I would have been worried about the purse." And I said, "Why?" And she goes, "Well, she kept saying boom, right?" And I was like, "Yeah, I guess she did." And she was like, doing like a trigger gun finger at you, right? And winking at you. And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Well, I would have taken that there might have been a bomb or something in that bag." Of course, she's paranoid because she's from a big city, but, I'm just naive on stuff like that. And it never even crossed my mind, but I suppose it's a possibility. Anyway, nothing bad happened, but, other than the evil overlord berating me for being too nice of a guy. But anyway, it was just a really weird story, and that was a really long story. Man, I may have to cut that down or cut it out completely. Anyway, I think we should probably get on with the podcast, right? Wow. Good Lord, 20 minutes into this. Holy crapamola. Okay, as my first official act of this podcast, I would like to say I'm a hypocrite. Heck of a way to start the podcast. Okay, the last episode was TruckerDump 132. It was called "Should We Call Out Bad Truckers?" And basically I was saying we shouldn't because it's too dangerous now. But guess what I did? The day after I posted this podcast, I called out a trucker. I can't believe I did it. I didn't even realize it until afterwards, and I thought, good Lord, I'm an idiot. I'm such a hypocrite. Anyway, I was on 65 South heading out of Indy, and there's some construction down there, and it's, one of those situations where it says trucks use the left lane, and I was using the left lane, and I had this truck behind me, and he seemed to be content that I was back there, but he was right on my butt. So, and of course, I'm doing the speed limit, and he probably didn't like that either. So the construction ended, and I started to get over in the right-hand lane, but I'm a trucker. I'm scanning out ahead of myself, and I see there's more construction signs up ahead. So I had just started to pull into the right lane, and I pulled back into the left lane and stayed there until I saw what that sign said. Well, of course, it says trucks stay in left lane. There's more construction coming up. Well, the trucker comes around on the right of me. He gives me one of these hand waving things like, "What are you doing, driver?" And of course, I got on the CB and called him out and said, "What are you doing over there? The sign says, left lane only for trucks. Can you not read?" And of course, it escalated as things tend to do. And of course, it ended up where he's threatening me with bodily harm because that's what stupid people do. Anyway, I just thought I would out myself that I am a hypocrite. There you go. Anyway, I did warn you in that episode that I was going to try to be the best I could and not call people out. But I even said in the episode I wasn't sure I was going to be able to do it. Well, it lasted a whole day. But I've been pretty good since then. Okay. Well, now that I've outed myself as a hypocrite, this hypocrite has a favor to ask you. I've been wanting to do this for a really long time. I've been trying to figure out who's listening to the TruckerDump podcast and get some feedback on the show itself. And so I've made a survey. It's only 10 questions. It will literally take you 2 minutes. I just did it myself. It took me less than 2 minutes. Most of the questions are multiple choice. Super, super easy. There's a link in the show notes to this, by the way. Now, it does require an email address, and I will use that email address, but I'm not going to spam you. All I'm going to do is maybe use it to let you know about new episodes that have come out, or maybe if there's a special promotion on something I'm selling or something like that. But you're very rarely going to get anything from me on this. I really need the email address because there is a contest associated with this, and you have a chance to win a TruckerDump t-shirt. How cool is that? Now, I would love to say exactly when I'm going to do the drawing, but I honestly have no idea. I'm shooting for sometime before Christmas, but, if I've only got 5 responses, I don't want to do the drawing yet. I want to wait a while until I get a decent amount of responses. Granted, I'm sure you would love it if you were one of 5 and, you had a great chance to win the t-shirt, but I really need this because potential advertisers always want to know who's listening. They want to know the demographics. And these aren't anything super personal about you guys. I don't need to know your income and stuff like that. All I'm asking for is, gender, your age, how you heard about the podcast, what kind of driver you are, if you're owner operator, company driver, that kind of thing. And then some general feedback about the show and what you like about it and what you don't. And I'm just hoping this will help make the show better. And also it'll give me some information that I can give to potential sponsors. So, I can get some more sponsors in here and, hopefully get more listeners out of that. It just, all this takes money. So I need some money to keep this thing going. So this will help. And you can help just by doing this. It costs nothing. Like I say, there's a link in the show notes. Please go over and fill this out. It will take you 2 whopping minutes. Thank you. I appreciate it in advance. All right. Now, I know for a fact there's some of you out there that have not gone to citadelfleet.com yet to check out the Citadel Escort Mobile Emergency Fob. Well, you're missing out. It's really cool. They got some great videos on this device out there. You need to check that out right now. Head on over there, citadelfleet.com. I'll be waiting when you come back. So what is this little emergency fob? Well, it's a little key fob sized device that you can put on your wrist, you can hang it on your belt, or you can hang it around your neck where it's nice and handy. You always have it with you and emergency services are just a touch away. Now you may be thinking, yeah, so's my phone. Well, guess what? If you're in a bad wreck, your phone is probably not going to stay in its little holder. It's going to fly through the windshield. What are you going to do then when you're pinned in your seat? Well, this thing's right around your neck. All you have to do is hold that button for just a couple of seconds, and you'll be talking to an emergency advisor from Citadel almost immediately. You see, this is a two-way device. You can talk and receive without actually touching the device once you press that button. It's got a GPS in it, so if you can't speak, they know exactly where you're at. And by the way, if you can't speak, they're going to send all the troops after you because they don't know what's going on. If you can speak, you can tell them all kinds of things that are going on. You can report an accident. You can report if there's suspicious activity outside your vehicle or, somebody trying to break into your truck or maybe just some shady character looking at you weird from across the parking lot. But it's also great for those emergency times when, you're walking around an icy parking lot, and you slip and fall on your way into the truck stop. And you know what? Don't you worry about if you slip and you land your big old butt right on top of this thing, because it is tough. It can handle a trucker's abuse. It can handle all sorts of temperature variations, and it can even handle being dunked in water for a little while. This escort device really is a peace of mind device. Hope you never need it, but if you do, it's always there for you. And when I say always, I mean always. This thing runs on the 3G network, not the fancy pants 4G or even the new fanangled 5G that's coming out. 3G is the most reliable, and all you need this for is a phone call, basically, so it's perfect for that. And another part of that always being there for you is they have 3 separate call centers in different parts of the country for redundancy. So you are never going to be in a situation where there's not somebody on the other end of that call. And because it has GPS, you can also enable it to track you if you want to. You don't have to if you're paranoid, but if you want your family to know where you're at all times, they can just go to a website and track and see where you're at. How cool is that? Now, I know it sounds all techie and everything, but the Escort is really designed just to pull out of the box and start using. It's really that easy. But hey, again, I'm never going to do justice in this quick ad. You really need to go over to citadelfleet.com and check it out. And you know what's really cool? They're giving TruckerDump listeners a discount. Normally the Escort is $29 a month, but you get it for $22 a month. Now pay attention to how to get your discount so you can run on over there. Go to citadelfleet.com. That's CITADEL fleet.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you'll see customer login. Click on that. Click on the TruckerDump logo and enter TruckerDump, all one word, all lowercase, for your discount. Boom, you got it. These instructions are in the show notes, by the way. Or hey, if you've got questions, don't forget there's somebody that can talk to you directly. You can use the good old-fashioned phone. It's 800-269-5905. Thanks to Citadel Fleet Safety for sponsoring this episode of TruckerDump and for offering such an awesome discount. All right, let's get on with the first news story. You know, I'm going to bang these as quick as I can here because recalls are boring, right? Nobody likes recalls. All right. I'm going to kind of combine 3 stories all together. Go to the show notes and just check out the link if you're interested in these, any of these affect you. Okay, basically there's 20,000 Freightliners and Western Stars. They were impacted by a steering shaft recall. And basically what that means is it was improperly mounted, and that can mean that your steering wheel is no longer connected to your front wheels. And that's a bad thing. So I think we like to steer. You should probably get that fixed. Check out the link for the all the units involved in that. We've also got 4,500 Freightliners and Western Stars that were recalled over a fuel line issue, and also 26,000 Internationals for the same problem. The engines affected in this are the Cummins ISX-15s and the X-15 engines. Basically what it says is in certain driving conditions, such as going down a long hill, a long downgrade, the fuel line can actually burst. And, well, that's not something you desire when you're going down a mountain, right? So anyway, check those out. Check that link. Oh, there is one more thing. Yeah, about 2,000 International trucks, there was a problem with the brake chambers. So I don't even understand it. I'm not going to read it. There's something wrong with the brake chamber, and that's kind of important too. So check out the link in the show notes to all 3 of these articles. Hey, let's keep with equipment, right? All right. Here is the part where I get totally confused, and I just confuse you. So I'm going to do this the best I can. Like I said, I am not a mechanic. I don't know what I'm talking about with this stuff, but I feel like it's something that is an interesting story for the trucking industry. Found this on overdriveonline.com, as I did all of those recalls, by the way. This one is called Concept from Cummins Would Dramatically Cut Emissions, company says. And basically what they're talking about is this new SCR system, Selective Catalytic Reduction. Now, I thought this was new because it says they're working on it, but it's not new because the more I'm reading about it, it sounds like it's the DEF thing. You know, with the DEF, with how the DEF gets into the exhaust and it burns it off. I don't know, maybe it's doing it a different way. I'm not really sure, honestly. I mean, I looked up selective catalytic reduction on Wikipedia, and this technology has been around since the 50s. The first large-scale installation was in international vehicles in 1978. So I'm not really sure what they're talking about here. I'm just a little confused by it all. But the reason I mentioned it is, they're talking about it being cleaner alternatives. It's going to burn off more of the emissions, and it's going to be better for the environment. And they're saying it's drastically, in their quotes, to levels previously thought unfeasible. Now, personally, that scares the whole hell out of me, because I'm sure you all remember the old EGR days. That's exhaust gas recirculation. I didn't even know what that meant back in the day, but just those 3 letters, EGR. If anybody said, oh, it's an EGR, you were like, oh crap, I'm going to be 3 days in the shop. It's just all of this, emission stuff is such a hassle. But anyway, I mention all that to say, Volvo, there's another article in here from overdriveonline.com. Volvo emission systems running into degradation issues, and the company is investing the scope of it. Okay, I thought, what kind of technology is this? Well, guess what? Volvo has already implemented this SRC thing, I guess, and they're already having problems with it. Gee, what a shocker. Is anybody surprised by this? I'm not. Anyway, I don't even want to try to explain this any further because I probably confuse you enough as is. So just click on the links, go read these articles for yourself. If you're at all mechanically inclined, you will probably understand it way better than I can explain it to you. But hey, let's keep with some more equipment, right? Did you see the new Tesla Semi video? They're really getting a kick out of showing you how fast this thing is and how quick it accelerates. This video, link in the show notes, of course, it just shows, the Tesla Semi with the trailer going around the corner, and then the guy punches it, and there's some, people looking on and everything, and you can really hear how it sounds. It's louder than you think it would be for an electric vehicle, but it's not near as loud as a Semi, obviously, especially if you're one of those guys who runs your Jake brake while you're in town. Anyway, check out the video if you're interested. I just wonder why they keep, touting the acceleration so much, because, acceleration isn't that great of a thing in a Semi. If you're jacking on it real hard like that, your freight's going to be all over the back of the trailer. You got to be kind of smooth with it. So I really don't see why they're touting this. I guess just to show how much power the thing's got. Anyway, one thing they don't ever say in these videos is how much weight that trailer has on it. So that would be interesting too. I'd be more interested to know how it pulled on a big hill. I don't care anything about flatland. I want to see how it pulls up the hills. So have you seen the video? What are your thoughts on it? I know it looks funky, and it's going to take some getting used to, especially with that guy sitting in the middle, right in the middle of the cab. It's kind of weird. I guess it shouldn't really surprise me, though. I see cranes, that are going down the road that the guys sit in the middle, and sometimes the concrete trucks are the guys sit in the middle. I guess it's not all that unique. But anyway, let's move on. Here's an article from the truckersreport.com. This one's called Pennsylvania to Tackle Truck Parking by Painting More Lines in the Lots. I admit, I laughed at this. The second I read it, I thought, oh, that's brilliant. Let's just paint some more lines. But, the more I read the article, the more it makes sense. Basically, they're talking about the Pennsylvania Turnpike and how it has a deficit of 890 truck parking spots. I don't think this would really surprise anyone who's ever been on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, right? It certainly doesn't me. Well, anyway, this article says that when this commission went to examine the situation and look at it, they said they only have 93 total parking spaces on the entire in the entire plaza system and everything. But they said they found 195 trucks parked there. So that told them that clearly they need to repaint some lines and allow for some more parking spaces. And I guess that makes sense, just be a little bit more efficient with your parking spaces. So anyway, if you find yourself on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, maybe you will find some more parking spots available. I still wouldn't count on it because good Lord, 890, and they're saying they've only found 195 trucks there. I don't know where they get that 890 short. I don't know. Maybe all the trucks lining the highway. I don't really know how they get that number. Anyway, that was an interesting article. Link in the show notes. Okay, this one surprised me big time. This is from overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes. IRS bumps up owner-operators per diem allowance. Okay. My first thought, owner-operators. Why not company drivers? I wonder if ours went up. Well, in case you're unfamiliar with this, maybe you're new to trucking or whatever, the IRS allows us, well, in the past, they allow us a meal deduction. Basically, they give us like a set amount per day that we can deduct for any time we're on the road. Like if we're out for, say, more than 12 hours in a day, and we're spending the night away from home, we can add that as a day and deduct so much money. Like, for instance, this year, it's $66. I think it was $63 last year. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, it was $63. And of course, there's some IRS magic that goes on, so we can't actually claim the $63, or, we had to claim 80% of the $63, which I don't know, why didn't they just set the amount at, 80% of $63? But the IRS, I'll never figure them out. Anyway, the owner-operators, I'm reading along in this article, and it says the owner-operators now get $66 per day. I'm thinking, wow, that's awesome. And as I keep reading, the very last paragraph says, and I quote, company drivers can no longer deduct meal per diem from their income. What? I had never heard this anywhere. One of the guys, Nick, had heard about it in our Slack group. He had heard about it, but I don't think any of the other guys had heard anything about it. It just seems weird, we're towards the end of the year, and I'm just now hearing about this. I mean, if I had known about this, maybe I would have done something a little different. My company does offer per diem pay. Maybe I would have taken it. Maybe I wouldn't have. I don't know, but just the fact that I didn't have any clue that this was even a thing. I guess this is part of the new tax laws that took effect on January 1st. So basically, I'm on the road like 300 days a year, more than that, usually, way more than that. And that's a big deduction for me. It really is. And I was really worried about it. And come to find out, I called the number here. If you're interested, there's a number. It's ATBS. I don't honestly know what that stands for. It is an accountant firm, a tax firm that focuses on trucker taxes. So that helps. I don't know what the ATBS stands for. I probably should, but I don't. Anyway, if you're curious more about this, do like I did. I called them, 866-920-2827. I'll repeat that at the end. Yeah, I called it up. The lady was really nice. She explained it to me. I said I saw this in the article, and I needed it explained to me. And she said, yeah, they've just claimed that basically they, the IRS, are saying that the company drivers and owner-operators are different when it comes to meals. That because owner-operators own their own business, then they can deduct it. But a company driver is just an employee, therefore the company should reimburse you for all these expenses. Well, I don't even know how to react to this. I mean, is there any company out there, any trucking company whatsoever, that pays for all of their expenses? I mean, even like the union drivers and stuff who they, spend the night in a hotel every night, I don't think even they get their food paid for. It's not reimbursed, not that I'm aware of. So I just don't know why they think there's a difference. From what the lady said that I talked to, she said, well, they're looking at it like any other business. Like if you were a salesperson for a company and you were on the road all the time, well, your company would pick up your hotel, they'd pick up your meals, they'd pick up your car rental, they'd pick up, maybe any, if you had to wear a uniform or something like that, they would pick that up. And then they're saying that trucking companies should be doing that too. Well, they don't, none of them do. But it goes even further than that. Like, we can't claim anything as company drivers anymore. I bought a new CB this year. I can't write that off. Thankfully, this $450 cooler I got in here, my freezer, was bought last year, so I did get to write it off. But anyway, work clothes, gloves, CBs, coolers, anything you use for your job out here that you normally spend money on, you cannot deduct that anymore as a company driver. Bizarre. But I was really worried about this. I thought, my God, I am going to owe a lot of taxes this year. But thankfully, Nick, again, in my Slack group, he pointed out that he was pretty sure the standard deduction was a lot higher. And he was right. I looked this up, and apparently we do get to still claim the standard deduction, just like any other employee, trucking or not trucking. Basically, the old deduction used to be $13,000 for a married couple. And I was always well above that. I think I usually came like 15, 16, something like that, for my deduction. So, my TurboTax that I always used just said, yeah, we're going to use this because it's a higher number and, get more taxes back. And thankfully, they actually over doubled it. It went from 13,000 to 24,000. So I'm thinking I might actually come out a little bit ahead. So I was possibly worried about nothing. I don't know. I'm still a little freaked out, because if I get at the end of the year and, figure out my taxes, and all of a sudden, I'm used to getting back a decent amount, not huge, but, some at least. And, if I get a big bill at the end of the month or the end of the year, I'm going to just cry. Just going to lay down and cry because I really don't need that right now. We're trying to put the evil overlord through school and everything, and it's not cheap. So, man, I hope. Anyway, if you've got questions about this, check out this article, and you can call that number. Again, it's 866-920-2827. Or, maybe talk to your payroll department about it or something like that. And talk to your accountant if you have one. But hey, at least we don't have to save receipts anymore, right? Well, I guess we got to look on the bright side of it. All right, next up, let's talk about this convoy that went on. I'm sure you guys all know about this. Basically, this was back at the beginning of October, and 50 bobtails, they convoyed up I-95 and into downtown D.C., where they right across from the Capitol building. And they were setting up, tents and booths and stuff like that, and meeting with their representatives and talking about trucking issues. And, the public was coming by and looking at the long line of trucks. And, of course, all the trucks are super nice, by owner-operators and stuff like that. And, it's a good thing for the trucking industry, to get their raise the issues, with all the hours of service that we're dealing with and the changes we're getting ready to go through, and, advising on that and talking to representatives and senators and all that kind of good junk, stuff that doesn't sound like fun at all to me, but I'm glad somebody was doing it. Anyway, I'm glad they're trying to raise awareness, but, it just never works. Granted, they got a little bit of press for being down there, but basically the only people who covered it are trucking organizations, like trucking media. None of the mainstream media carried it at all. But anyway, I'm glad somebody's at least trying to do something. This was a group of just a whole bunch of different trucking organizations that got together and decided to do something about it and go down and let their voice be heard. That I'm all for. But the other part of the story, of course, there's always a bad part. Well, I don't know. It depends on how you look at bad. So anyway, both these articles are on overdriveonline.com, link in the show notes. So anyway, it's Saturday morning. All these 50 bobtails are headed back out of town. They're on I-95, and they're going back down towards Fredericksburg, Virginia. But they decide, we're going to give a warning shot. And they stopped in the middle of traffic and blocked the entire freeway. This went on for about 5 minutes, I guess, just a little bit shorter. And, of course, the one thing that comes out of this is somebody took a picture of a trucker who was very excited about the whole situation. And, of course, he's all bent over looking happy as can be, and he's given he's leaned over and he's got two fingers straight up in the air looking at the camera. Now, after all the good things they're trying to do down there, with the booths and everything, now they come out here and they pull this. I'm not sure what they were trying to accomplish. I guess just raise awareness. Here's the problem. You can raise awareness but it's not the right kind of awareness. This is just my opinion. I know there's some people out there who's probably all for what happened here, but think about it this way. This is a Saturday morning. Everybody's wanting to enjoy their weekend. You know, all the cars. Now they've got a row of trucks blocking the entire interstate. Does that make the truckers look good, or does it make the truckers look bad? It makes the truckers look bad. It makes them look like selfish jerks. I can't imagine there was anybody sitting back behind there in a car going, oh, this is great. This is just wonderful. These truckers deserve to be heard. No, they're thinking, get out of my way, you know? I got to get my kid to soccer practice. You know, I mean, I just don't see why you would do this. Well, I see why you would do this. I just don't think it's going to work. This is just my opinion. Like I said, if I'm wrong, you tell me. Write in, let me know. TruckerDump@gmail.com. I would love to get your guys' opinions on this. Did this help at all? Did, this traffic stoppage help? I don't know. And there is a poll here you can take that overdriveonline.com is taking. Does stopping traffic for 5 or fewer minutes on an interstate highway send a message you support? Yes, but only without otherwise vulgar displays. No, or I don't know. I put no. Even if the guy hadn't flipped off the cameras and everything and that had been on Facebook everywhere, I really don't think that this is the way to go. There's other ways to do it. I don't know how that is, but there's got to be other ways to do it that is not inconveniencing a bunch of citizens who really don't care about our plight. Just my opinion. Hey, let's move on to an article about violations. This, it's not really profound in itself. It's just something I found interesting. OverdriveOnline.com again. Toughest 10 states for violation intensity and how New York and Texas stand out. Okay. This one just had me a little confused. They list a bunch of different states and, how many violations there were and everything. And they said that New York and Texas stood out. I get New York. I've always heard they're a pain in the butt. I've never personally had a problem with them, but I have always heard that. The Texas one, though, that surprises me because Texas scales are never open. So where are they just doing these spot checks? Are they pulling people over and giving them tickets, citations and violations on the side of the road? I don't know. I'm a little confused by that because, like I said, 99% of the time when you drive by a scale in Texas, it's not open. So I'm just wondering where they're doing this. Am I wrong about that? I mean, I am in Texas a decent amount of time, so I think I know what I'm talking about, but it wouldn't be the first time that I don't. So make it clear to me. TruckerDump@gmail.com. Well, this is going to be a long one thanks to my long-winded stories at the beginning, but hey, it is what it is. All right, so are you considering becoming an owner-operator? Maybe getting into a lease purchase deal? Well, I don't know anything about it, but Clifford Peterson does, and he wrote an article on overdriveonline.com, and you can check that out. It's how to spot a bad lease purchase deal. Like I say, I wouldn't know the difference, but I found it kind of interesting, some of his ideas. If you've got ideas about that, let me know. What's your thoughts in general on lease purchase compared to owner operating? How many of you are lease purchase drivers? I don't know. I'd be interested to know that too. Next article has to do with U.S. Express. We all know them. Big red trucks, lots of teams, right? Well, this overdriveonline.com article is called Driver Sues U.S. Express Over Recruiting Robocalls. Apparently, this is a standard practice with U.S. Express where, I don't know if you guys know what a robocall is, but it's, one of these automated calls where it's not really a person on the end of the line. It's a recording and they call you and I guess try to get you to come to work for U.S. Express. The reason I brought this article up is because I just wondered, does this happen a lot? I mean, clearly it does enough for the, U.S. Express to get sued over it, but I don't know. I did used to work for a very large carrier that when I quit, they pursued me for, I don't know, they only called me like once every 3 months or so, and it was always a person just seeing if I was interested in coming back. It lasted for, I don't know, maybe a year, but I hear horror stories of, drivers getting harassed by their old companies, constant calls and leaving messages and texting them and all kinds of stuff. And I've just never experienced that. Again, am I out here by myself or Am I just clueless? Am I in my own little world? I don't know. Does this happen to you? If it does happen to you, write in and tell me about it. I'd be interested to find out more about it. Hey, this next story, good things, right? Higher pay for drivers? That's good, right? Driver pay continued to push carriers' costs higher in 2017. Okay, we've all heard that the freight is really hot, that it's in high demand, and that freight rates are up, and that means trucking companies are making more money. They also got a lot of tax breaks this year with the way Trump did the tax things. The corporations are getting a big break, and apparently in the trucking industry, most of the companies are actually putting this money back into the system. Maybe they're updating equipment, whatever. Part of that is going to driver pay too. But there is a stat in here that I was just quite a little, I'm not sure if I hate to argue with the numbers. I'm not a stats guy, but it just doesn't make any sense to me. What they say here is that carriers spend on average 55.7 cents a mile on driver wages in 2007, compared to 52.3 cents a mile in 2016. Really? 52.3 cents per mile in 2016? I mean, I was making that. I get that. But I got 20 years in. 55.7 cents a mile, I'm beating that by just a little bit. But in my experience, I'm still seeing lots of trucking companies out there that are paying in the 40s. So where are they getting this number? I mean, I feel like I'm at the top of the scale, just above 55.7. And if that's the case, if I'm the top of the scale and there's a whole bunch at 40s, I still even see 30 cents a mile out there. Or, not 30, but like 35. I see 38 on a regular basis. It's like those numbers seem like they would skew to, maybe more around 45 cents average for driver wages. And I thought, okay, maybe they're including insurance costs in this and stuff, but they're not. That's totally separate. They're not talking anything about insurance in this. This is just driver wages. So am I wrong about that? Does that seem high, 55.7 cents per mile? I don't know. Seems very high to me. I would love to talk about this next story if I could get rid of all these pop-ups on truckinginfo.com. Wow, man, pop-ups everywhere. Anyway, kind of an interesting story. Researchers developing drowsy driving blood test. Really? Yeah, really. Apparently, over in England, they have figured out that there's 68 genes that can detect whether the blood sample was taken from a sleep-deprived person or a well-rested person. And it's 92% accurate. Now, of course, they got to go through all kind of testing and stuff like that, and before they can release it to the market. But that might be interesting. Maybe one of these days, I don't know, for those of you truckers who maybe haven't had a wreck yet, but usually one of the first things you do after an accident is your company will send you to get a drug test, a drug and alcohol test, just so they can prove that you were sober at the time. That way the big lawyers can't come after you. It's kind of a, cover my butt type of a thing. Well, this is just one more test that we might be taking at that time too, to show if we're drowsy. I don't like the idea of this, because sometimes I do drive after, I haven't had as much sleep as I probably should get the night before. Now, it's not usually my fault. That's usually because, the company has given me a load. I wake up after 8 hours of sleep and they tell me, hey, your load's going to be ready in 12 hours. So what am I supposed to do? I can't go back to bed. Anyway, there are situations like that. But anyway, I'm not looking forward to this test. Hopefully by the time it's all approved and, the U.S. government's even stricter on this kind of stuff. So hopefully by the time it is implemented, I'll be dead and gone. Or at least retired. Yeah, let's go for retired. I like the idea of that better. Oh, who am I kidding? I'm never going to be able to retire. Oh. All right, well, that story was kind of depressing, so, let's address that. This is kind of a dark subject, I guess, but again, over driveonline.com, check out the link in the show notes. This one is called Inside Help. Fellow truckers offer comfort resources to help prevent suicide. Apparently, suicide rates have increased more than 30% from 1999 to 2016. That's like 45,000 lives lost due to suicide. Man, that's sad. That's according to the Centers for Disease Control. So according to a 2012 study in Mental Health Nursing Journal, they found that 27% of truck drivers reported experiencing depression, and only 5% of them sought medical or psychological help for it. Well, this totally makes sense considering what the CDC says. Let me quote something. The CDC says the most effective suicide prevention is for the at-risk person to be part of a functioning community. End quote. Well, that explains a lot, doesn't it? A trucker, well, he's part of a larger community, but not really part of a functioning community where you've got, people that you're talking to every day and you're hanging around and you've got a life. You're out here alone, and depression, it's just going to get worse when you're out here by yourself. Anyway, there's a group I'd like to tell you about called Truckers for Truckers. They're on Facebook. Just search for Truckers for Truckers on Facebook. And that is a community of drivers and people who are there to help you through this kind of stuff. It's not like a suicide hotline or anything like that, although I guess it could be used for such. If you're feeling depressed or whatever, head on over there and check out that site. And, it's just a group of people who are interested in you and want to, know you better. And that way you can be part of a functioning community. That's the whole idea of this. So anyway, I thought that was pretty neat. And since that was kind of depressing, I'd like to end the news with music, right? Okay, well, I can't play music on here, copyrighted music, because that would be wrong in every single way. But I found out that Overdrive, again, they have a curated playlist of music to truck by, is what it's called. And this is a really long list of trucking-related songs. Now, you know that trucking music is often not my thing because it's often country, and I'm not a huge country fan. I do like some of it, but I know many of you are and like that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, I reached out to Todd Dills, who is the editor, the big honcho over at overdriveonline.com, and there's really no way to download this playlist. Unfortunately, he says it's on SoundCloud, and you can also listen to it from their website. So, you can just click on the songs and just listen to them in order there if you want. Just if you're interested in that, and you just want something to listen to different today while you're out on the road, just head on over to this link in the show notes and listen to some music. Maybe you'll find something new you like out there. You can support some of these. I'm sure there's some independents in here. Of course, I see some big names in here too, like Waylon Jennings and George Jones and, stuff like that. But, well, not George Jones, Drive-By Truckers. Anyway, yeah. Anyway, check that out if you're interested. And there we go, 58 minutes in, and we're finally done with news. Wow.
Give us a bottle of your finest champagne, 5 shrimp cocktails, and some bread for my brother.
What's that?
Sushi.
Sushi?
Boy, some chicken wings have really hit the spot.
This is a tasty burger.
Don't play with your food. Eat it.
I keep losing my mouse. I started using my TV as a second monitor in here to make things easier for my podcasting, and I keep losing my mouse. I can't figure out where my cursor is. Anyway, what are we doing? Oh, yeah, Trucker Grub. Hey, this time we got one from Nick Mack, who you might remember from before, who was actually the guy who informed me that he already knew about the tax changes. Well, fine and dandy, Nick Mack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. That's what I think of when I think of his name. Nick Mack, paddywhack, give a dog a bone. I don't know why that is. Sorry, Nick. Anyway, Nick's got someplace good for you to eat, so take it away, Nick.
Hey, this is Nick Mack for the Trucker's Grub. Just in case anybody is on I-40 in Tennessee, you should stop at the Pilot on exit 143. So take I-40 through Tennessee, stop at the Pilot on exit 143. You'll see all the signs for Loretta Lynn's Kitchen, but I'm not recommending Loretta Lynn's Kitchen. That only has like 3.3 stars. It does advertise there's a buffet there if you're super hungry, but I would, based on the ratings, I wouldn't go to Loretta Lynn's kitchen. I went across the street to the log cabin. The log cabin has been there for over 100 years. It was built as a log cabin, and in the 60s it was turned into a restaurant. And since the 60s, they've been doing great home cooking. So for like 60 plus years, they've been cranking out great meals, and they're highly rated, highly reviewed on Google, and the ratings on the internet, it's like a 4.6 or 4.7 star. And I actually went to the log cabin instead of Loretta Lynn's, and I must say it was the best Southern fried chicken I've ever had. It was a great meal. Everybody, the lady that was across the table from me was saying that she's been going there since she was a kid. Her mom would always stop there, and she was bringing her families there. All the family ordered some pie. She got a whole pie to go because they do a lot of homemade pies there too. And the people across the other way from the table were saying how much they liked that place. I admit it was a great meal, and if I'm ever on I-40 going through Tennessee again and I have a chance to take exit 143, I'll park at the Pilot across the street and walk to the log cabin because it's great food, home cooked, and you got to try the Southern fried chicken. It was the best Southern fried chicken I've ever had.
Well, Nick, you had me at pie to go. No, but who doesn't love Southern fried chicken? I got to admit, when you started this and you said exit 143 in Tennessee, I was sure you were going to say Loretta Lynn's. I have never been there. I've never been to either of these places, but I was positive that's where you were going because, like you say, that's the one everyone knows about. But hey, I'm glad you looked at the reviews and now you point us to the log cabin. That's awesome because I'm sure the log cabin has cool decor inside too, right? And like you said, chicken and pie to go. How can you go wrong with that? I actually might try this one sometime because it's right across the street and I can walk. I don't imagine it's probably super expensive either. So anyway, Nick, thanks for submitting your Trucker Grub segment. I really appreciate it. Hey, I got a couple more of these waiting in the wings, but if you are interested, if you found a good place to eat and you'd like to share it, please send that in advance. I could start doing a couple of these in each section if I get enough of them, but right now I'm just pacing them out. So if I don't have one month, then, I can reach back into the archives a little bit. Anyway, just email me at truckerdump@gmail.com. If you remember to put Trucker Grub in the subject line, that would be great. Actually, I think it will do it automatically if you use the link in the show notes. Aren't I fancy? Alrighty then, let's get on with today's main topic. You probably guessed from the title that this is a Thanksgiving-based post, and you're probably thinking, hey, it's only the beginning of November, it's not quite Thanksgiving yet. Well, when you only put out one podcast per month, and you try to put it out on the beginning of the month, well, that's what it is. I could delay longer, but then all the guys in the Slack group would start harassing me about it. So, like I say, I've been trying to kick these out on the first of the month. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, last month on the last episode, TruckerDump 132, I had some issues posting to the, it posted fine. The podcast went up fine on the website, but I had some issues with, I'm not going to get into it. Basically some technical issues where you weren't actually seeing the podcast show up if you listen to it in a podcast player. And that was a problem. I had it for 5-6 days it took to get that sorted out. So I finally did get it up. But if, that came out a little bit late. And I honestly, I'm so horrible at self-promotion that when I actually did get it fixed, I forgot to tell everybody that they could check their podcast players now. So anyway, if you missed the last episode 132, go back and listen to that. Anyway, like I said, this one is Thanksgiving based. I don't think I have done a Thanksgiving based podcast since 2000. When was it? 2011. It was called A Trucker's Thanksgiving. It was episode 78. If you don't remember that, you should really go back and check that one out. This is one of those, there's a few that stand out for me, that I've done, some of my favorites. And I got to say, this is one of my favorite ones. If you like the old Trucker Dump with all the snark in it, lots and lots of snark, well, that's it. You really need to check this one out. I was thankful in a very smart-alike way. Anyway, I'm a bit more serious this time around. I just think these people deserve some thanks. So anyway, let's get on with it. I call this one A Trucker Gives Thanks. We truckers often feel underappreciated, and rightly so. We deliver virtually every product that everyone owns, yet we're still considered a nuisance to the road. But every once in a while, we truckers do get some recognition. Not everyone in the trucking industry is so lucky. The most obvious example of drivers being appreciated is the aptly named National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, which takes place each September. But many carriers also have driver appreciation days throughout the year where they give away prizes, grill burgers and brats, breakfast, whatever, and the drivers attend, and sometimes the bigwigs attend. I actually attended one of these recently, and I had the opportunity to sit across from the CEO of my company. I talked to him for about 30 minutes. I mean, come on. Sitting across the table, talking to the CEO about how he could improve the company while eating French toast and bacon, well, how can you beat that, right? Additionally, shippers and receivers sometimes give us products for no apparent reason. I got full access to a whole rack of packaged cookies not too long ago, and my friend driver Chris Mack gets a free pint of Ben & Jerry's every time he picks up a load there. Hey, I just discovered something good about pulling a reefer. And I found one more reason to curse his name. At least I pronounced it right this time. So now that we know truckers do get their due, let's talk about the forgotten people. So clearly we truckers get more accolades than our whiny little selves let on. But what about all the forgotten people who keep the trucking industry rolling? Last time I checked, there wasn't such a thing as a National Shower Cleaners Week. So let's start there. Here's a list of unsung heroes who keep the trucking industry rolling. Thank you to the truck stop maintenance people. These jack-of-all-trades do everything from cleaning showers to mopping up a kid's puke to power washing the fuel bays to trying to keep up with the onslaught of the restrooms. Now, hey, I know what some of you are thinking. What's this idiot talking about? Why would we thank these people? Truck stops are always filthy. All right, I'll admit truck stops aren't often as clean as we'd like them to be. But think about how nasty they'd be without these good folks cleaning them. Hey, here's an idea. If we truckers want cleaner facilities, how about we quit being such frickin' slobs? There's just absolutely no reason to spray water all over the sink area. I brush my teeth and knock down my alfalfa calic every single day without soaking the countertop and the floor. And if a little water does splash out of the sink, it's super easy to grab a paper towel and wipe up the mess before I leave. Now here's another little tip to help you with the cleanliness. Now I know this is going to come as a complete shock to some of you, but human waste belongs in a toilet, not somewhere in the vicinity of the toilet. First off, toilet paper goes into the toilet, as does your poop. Unless you've had an emergency Hershey squirt, well, there's absolutely no reason for it to be on the floor or the walls. Yucky. As for going number 2, well, you women sit down for crying out loud. So why is it that the evil overlord could write a novel called Horrors of the Ladies' Room? And men, well, if you can aim a pea shooter or a squirt gun, then why can't you hit your freaking target in the john? It is kind of shaped like a gun barrel, And hey, if you're not going to use the urinal, lift the lid. I know there's no girls coming in there, but we guys are sitting on those seats too. Yuck. Speaking of yuck, now let's talk about the parking lots. Who do you think puts all that trash in the parking lot? Employees? And speaking of pee lots, do you really think the truck stop employees are the ones pissing in the parking lot? Nope, it's us truckers. But these good maintenance people have to be the ones to clean it up. Basically, if we truckers didn't act like our mom was following us around all the time and cleaning up after us, the maintenance people would not only have an easier job, but they'd also be able to keep things cleaner. Besides, I'm pretty sure your mom would kick you square in the ass if you left her bathroom sink covered in water and shaving stubble, let alone what your wife would do to you. So why do you do it to the maintenance crew? Now, if that's not convincing enough for you, well, look at it this way. If you were doing that job, how would you feel about your sloppiness? Now, if you said you wouldn't care, well, you're a liar, and I kind of hope your pants do catch on fire. So thank you to the maintenance crew. We know you have a thankless job, but we're lucky to have you, and we appreciate the job you do. Obviously, we'll appreciate you even more if we don't find wads of hair in the shower drain, or poop streaks in the toilet. Thanks. Thank you to the truck stop service workers and managers. We all know how big a jerk some truckers can be. Now imagine your job is interacting with them all day long. They listen to us bitch and moan about our screwed up fuel card, despite the fact that it's not their fault. They give us cash advances, and they even still send faxes for drivers who are still living in the 80s. They dish up deli goods, brew our coffee, and make the pilot Flying J smell like someone had an early morning synergasm. The ones I feel most sorry for are the young, pretty female cashiers. We've all heard the truckers flirting with them. Newsflash, truckers, no attractive young woman wants to flirt with a middle-aged, smelly trucker wearing grease-stained clothes and exhaling a toxic mix of cigarettes and coffee. Just assume that if she wanted to flirt with older guys all day long, she'd be working at Hooters or twirling around a pole for a living. In short, truck stop cashiers and managers do whatever it takes to keep us truckers fed and caffeinated so we can keep those big wheels rolling. So please take it easy on them. And thank you folks for all the things you do to keep the truck stops running smoothly. P.S. Drivers, your coffee stirrer and empty creamer packets belong in the trash, not on the countertop. Again, your mom doesn't work here. Thank you to all the restaurant staff. Whether it's the ever-present Subway, a tantalizing Taco Hell, or a full-service restaurant like Denny's or Iron Skillet, we truckers should appreciate the job that these folks are doing. Many of these eateries are open 24/7, which means someone's always working the graveyard shifts so you can get some grub when you're pulling an all-night drive. Or heck, maybe you just want to get out of the truck to relax for a while. Lord knows it's hard to chill out in the driver's lounge when you got a bunch of drivers screaming over each other about the bad call the referee just made. Or worse, a discussion of politics breaks out. God help us. You know, if only we could elect one of these guys as our president. They all seem to think they've got it all figured out. Uh-huh. As you regular listeners know, I eat most of my meals in my truck. But every once in a while, even cheapskates like me need to escape the cab for a while. It's really nice to go inside, have a seat at a real table instead of eating off that crusty old road atlas that doubles as a TV tray. Sometimes I just forget how comforting it is to have a friendly waiter or waitress plop a plate of food in front of me and keep my glass of iced tea filled. And of course, they couldn't serve up the food at all if someone wasn't standing over that hot stove back in the kitchen. You know, maybe I appreciate these cooks a bit more than the average Joe, because I can't cook to save my life. If I can't pop the top off a package and stick it in a microwave, ain't no one getting fed around me. So thanks to all the restaurant personnel who keep us truckers fed and for providing us with the closest thing to home we can have without actually being there. Thank you to the mechanics. No one likes going to the shop. Heck, I talked about that earlier in the podcast. You know, I get that. But what's worse? Taking a shower or sitting in a driver's lounge while your truck is being worked on? Or you crawling underneath your truck in the P-lot to diagnose and fix the problem yourself? You know, I've said it before. I have the mechanical aptitude of a toothbrush, so I probably appreciate these hard-working folks far more than those of you who could actually fix your trucks if you wanted to. The times I appreciate these mechanics the most is when I'm broken down on the side of the highway. I get to sit in my nice, safe cab while the mechanic proceeds to remove a tire with one eye, while the other one is keeping tabs on all the passing cars. Drivers, try to remember that and get to an exit ramp or somewhere completely off the road if possible. I don't know how much these guys are getting paid, but I'm sure it's not enough to dodge traffic and fix your flat tire in the pouring rain. So hey, when you see a broken down vehicle on the road, try to move over a lane to give them some breathing room. I'm amazed at how many truckers I see blow by without changing lanes or even easing off the throttle a bit. I know traffic doesn't always allow a lane change, but that shouldn't keep you from backing out of the throttle, should it? It's only a couple of seconds you're losing there, drivers. So anyway, thanks to the mechanics who fix our flats, replace our alternators, and troubleshoot intermittent electronic problems that drive us battier than Batman driving the Batmobile into the Batcave. Yes, you sometimes take longer than I'd like to fix my truck. But from now on, I'm going to try to think of it like this. If I had to fix my own truck, it would take me 10 times longer than it would for you to do it. And that's assuming I'm capable of doing anything more complicated than changing a headlight bulb. Better make that 20 times faster. Thanks to the dispatchers. Yes, I really did just say that. Now, personally, I can't see why anyone would voluntarily become a trucking dispatcher. But hey, I'm thankful there are enough insane people out there to fill the positions. First, you're talking to truck drivers all day. How fun can that be? There's only 3 types of calls dispatchers take. The first one is the informational request. You know, stuff happens through a trucker's day. We sometimes find ourselves with an incorrect pickup or delivery number. We have questions about a load or a customer. Perhaps we have a question about company policy. Or maybe we need to get some out-of-route fuel set up. These calls are usually the easiest part of their day. The second type of call is the friendly blabbermouth. There's a school of thought out there that you should call your dispatcher fairly often to form a good relationship with them. You know, I'm just going to come out and say that's flat out wrong. I've had a lot of dispatchers over the years, and not one has ever told me that they like it when a driver calls just to chat. These dispatchers, they have a lot to do, so it makes it awkward for them because they need to get off the phone to help other drivers, but they don't want to offend the blabbermouth either. Now, the third type of call is the disgruntled driver. You know, like I said, I've never had a dispatcher who didn't appreciate the fact that I only call when I need something. Furthermore, if it's just information I need, usually I can get an answer with a quick computer message. Dispatchers truly love that. But when I do have a serious problem, it often warrants a phone call, and I'm usually not in a good mood. Maybe it's looking like they're going to have a hard time getting me home on time. Or perhaps they're expecting me to be ready to drive an 11-hour shift 12 hours from now after I've just woken up from 8 hours of sleep. Whatever the situation, these are not fun phone conversations for either party involved. So as you can see, only one of these types of driver interactions are pleasant. And we drivers don't even really know what goes on when they're not on the phone with us. They're busy screening our loads before they send them to us to make sure we have the hours to run them. Well, at least the good ones do. They're pushing through detention pay and handling lumper transaction. And you know there's some office politics going on too, right? It's a fact. Dispatchers are pretty much universally despised by drivers. That rivalry is about as old as the Hatfield and McCoys. Personally, I don't think that way. I think dispatchers have a tough job that I wouldn't want to do, and that makes me appreciate them even more. Well, wait a second. As long as they're a good dispatcher who actually treats you with respect and has a cool enough head to know when you just need to blow off some steam. Now, if you're a bad dispatcher, all bets are off. Might I advise a different job? I hear the truck stops are hiring shower cleaners. And hey, I've included a link in the show notes to the podcast I did on truck dispatchers. It was quite early on, one of my first ones. Check that out. Who's next? Thank you to the planners. Dispatchers for small carriers may actually handle the planning duties too, but most large trucking companies have standalone planners nowadays. Their sole purpose is to look at the loads available and assign it to the truck that's best suited to cover it. Maybe that's because you're closest to the load, or maybe you're not, but it's the best load to get you home for your proctologist appointment on Friday. My dislike of planners is well documented way back from my early days of podcasting. Check out the link in the show notes for that. Whew, I was not happy with the planner at this one. But the more I think about the complexity of their job, the more I have an appreciation for what they do. Not only are they usually handling large zones of the country and planning hundreds of trucks per day, but they're often thinking 2 or 3 steps ahead. You know, one of the few times I'm truly pissed at my company is when it looks like I might not be getting home after my typical 3 weeks out. Yet in all my years with this company, I've probably not gotten home maybe 3 or 4 times. That's not bad for 12 years. And that doesn't mean I don't get home, it just means I might be home late or something. Now, if you compare that number to how many times I'd given up hope that I was actually going to be able to get home, well, that's a much bigger number. There's been so many times when I'm calling dispatch and complaining about my situation, whether that's getting home late or possibly not at all. It's the day before I'm due home, and they still got no plan. Just as I resign myself to my fate, the planner usually comes through at 4:45 p.m. with some crazy series of loads that'll have me home on time. Maybe I pick up a load headed the wrong direction, but I'm relaying with another driver who has a load going my way. You know, I remember one time there was a combination of 4 loads and relays lined up just to get me home. And this wasn't for Christmas or anything, just a regular time getting home. That couldn't have been easy, especially considering I'm just one of thousands of drivers who are trying to get home. To me, it's truly impressive when you think about it. I often refer to it as magic when I talk about it. So as I preach so often on this podcast, I'm trying to look at the situation with a new set of eyes. Therefore, I'd like to thank all the planners for the miracles they pull off every day to keep us rolling. Thank you to the other office employees. You know, there are numerous other jobs that make my driving job possible, but we don't have time to go into great detail for everyone. Let's just say that without the recruiter deciding I'm an awesome candidate, I wouldn't even have this job. Without salespeople, there'd be no customers with freight. Without customer service reps, the loads wouldn't get booked and my load information would be wrong way more than the 99% that it's correct. Without the payroll department, I wouldn't get paid, which would make the evil overlord slightly grumpy. Obviously, there are the executives who keep everything running smoothly and who provide the job and the equipment to do it. I can honestly say that if I had to buy my own truck, I probably would have never been a truck driver. There's also the tech department that keeps all the computers running so I can send messages from my truck instead of calling and bugging my dispatcher. Oh, and lest we forget, accessing Netflix over the company Wi-Fi. Yay! Now, one department that's harder to thank, let alone love, is the safety department. I gotta say, they're pretty good at what they do, but obviously I wish we truckers were allowed to police ourselves. Unfortunately, there's too many of you outlaws out there who ruined it for the rest of us. Old-time trucker dude, I'm looking at you. At least I can always count on the safety department to walk me through the 8-hour split sleeper berth when I have to do it. You know, you'd think after 21 years I'd have it licked, but hey, it is what it is. So basically, a big thanks to everyone who works in the office to keep my truck moving and the money rolling in. I appreciate it almost as much as the evil overlord does. You know, this next group is really hard to thank. The shippers and receivers. Okay, I'm going to do my best here. After all, without their products, we truckers wouldn't have anything to haul. But I've got a qualifier before I go thanking them. Now, if you're a well-organized shipper or receiver who gets their trucks loaded or unloaded in a timely manner, then I'm truly thankful for you. To all you forklift drivers who drive that lift like it's an extension of your body, thank you for doing your job so well. There are few things I love more than getting loaded in 15 minutes. Yes, it happens, but it's very rare. 30 minutes is pretty awesome too, though. I'll take that any day. Now, I do understand that some products simply take more time to load, but I'd argue that if you can't load a truck in less than 1 or 2 hours, you need to revamp your system. Maybe quit trying to save $1 or $2 by floor stacking everything. Or maybe you should face the realization that you're not quite as efficient as you think you are. Maybe you could remedy that by setting your appointment times further apart because you're always running behind schedule. To sum up, if you're an efficient shipper or receiver, thank you for respecting the driver's time. But if you set unrealistic appointment times and have slow loaders that make a sloth look like Speedy Gonzales, then you can go suck eggs. And I'm not talking about those delicious Cadbury eggs. I'm talking about some eggs covered with chicken poop and full of blood clots. Bon appetit! Last but not least, I'd like to thank the four-wheeler drivers. Yep, you heard me right. You can pick your jaw up off the floor anytime. You know, it's common knowledge that we humans tend to focus on the bad things in life. I don't know why that is, and quite honestly, I wish that wasn't the case, but there's just no denying it. We over-the-road truckers can be on the roads for up to 11 hours a day. We encounter thousands, possibly tens or even hundreds of thousands of cars per day, depending on where we're at. Most of the day goes smoothly. The vast majority of these interactions between cars and trucks are handled perfectly by everyone involved. But if one four-wheeler does something stupid or flat-out dangerous around us, that's the thing that's going to stick in our craw all day. Heck, we might even carry it into the next day. But again, this takes a mind shift on our part. Yeah, I know. I've been guilty of bashing four-wheelers numerous times in the TruckerDump archives. And many times, rightly so. But it's also important that we remember how many good four-wheeler drivers there are out there. We encounter them every single day. Here's some examples. Think about the utility worker in the Ford pickup that stayed back from the light so we could make that tight right turn. Much obliged, man. How about that soccer mom in the Honda minivan who ducked in behind us before the exit ramp instead of speeding up and cutting across 3 lanes of traffic in front of us? Thank you, ma'am, for not making me change my boxers today. We all know you can wear underwear for 3 or 4 days, right? Right? How about a shout out to the many cars and pickups that refrain from giving us the old one finger salute when they finally get around us after we found ourselves in an accidental turtle race? Thank you for your patience. If you don't know what a turtle race is, check out the link in the show notes. Or hey, remember that nice old guy in the Corvette who left a gap at the busy intersection so you could get into the street from the side road? Much appreciated, old rich dude that I'm not at all jealous of. How about all the smart drivers who pass your big rig quickly so they aren't riding alongside you for the next 3 miles? Thank you folks for not giving me a crick in my neck from constantly monitoring my mirror until you passed. Hey, here's one. You know how you turn on your turn signal when you're trying to change lanes and that four-wheeler driver actually slows down a bit instead of gassing on it for a change of pace? I know it doesn't happen often, so not only do I want to thank you, I think I might love you a little bit. Creepy. Hey, what about this situation? What about all those freeway on-ramps where the driver's actually paying attention and they either slow down or speed up to merge properly? Thank you for not being one of those butt munches that hadn't figured out how to merge yet. Or lastly, what about how you scooted over into the center lane to help that Toyota SUV merge onto the freeway? Thank you for speeding up quickly so we can get back into the right lane as soon as possible. Yeah, I'm certain that most of us probably encountered a bad four-wheeler driver sometime earlier today. But think of all the ones who passed by without incident. Do the numbers. 10,000, 100,000, or even more good drivers compared to the 1 or 2 bad ones that we decide to focus on. So as my final thank you, I'd like to give a shout out to the group of people who are usually cited as being the #1 enemy of truckers, four-wheeler drivers. To all of you who do the little things to help us truckers navigate traffic, thank you. Even to those of you who simply don't do anything stupid enough to draw our attention in the first place, I truly, sincerely thank you. Now, for the rest of you selfish, knuckle-headed four-wheeler drivers who cause us truckers daily torment, well, as far as I'm concerned, you can go play chicken with a frickin' telephone pole. And I'm hoping you don't have collision warning.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Man, I've been talking for 3 hours. I'm starting to get hoarse. I don't know if you guys can hear that or not. Anyway, we got some feedback, so let's keep on pounding through it. Hey, you remember David from the Trucker Grub section last time, Driver Dave? Well, he writes in the good old-fashioned way this time. He writes, "Greetings, Todd. On vacation now for another week and a half. So consequently, it pains me terribly to think about trucks or working at the present time. Be that as it may, I do have time to write. I remember that on the last episode, I don't know what episode that was, you said you couldn't go back in your PeopleNet e-logs to see the previous day's logs. I can do that in mine. I just go to view hours of service, then details, then I start going back. I can go back and view the last 14 days as is required in Canada. Yes, so I'm getting on with this digital ankle bracelet. We have a working relationship. I assume the digital ankle bracelet is the e-logs." He says, "Hope that helps. God bless, Driver Dave." Actually, Driver Dave, it does help. Actually, when I wrote him back, when he wrote this to me in late September, I did not have that detailed button. Well, I had the button, but it was grayed out. But recently, Safety called me out of the blue and said, "Hey, are you going to be sitting for a few minutes? We need to do an update on your PeopleNet. We're getting ready to add the GPS to it. They're going to add some mapping software to it, and they had to get it all set up for that." So I just went back and looked just now, and lo and behold, guess what's there? The details button. So actually now I can go back in for the last 7 or 8 days, I think it is 8 days, and I can go back and see when I actually did stuff. Like I can figure out when I fueled or when I arrived at a shipper, receiver, things like that. And that's what he says he does. He wrote me back and says, "Yes, I like to refer back sometimes when I make out my swindle sheet." Nice swindle sheet. "As when I got fuel or when I arrived and left a customer. One thing I do," he says, "I'm old school, is to use a marvelous device called a pen." He says it uses real ink and it dispenses said ink onto a piece of paper in a small notebook when applied in a careful manner. The notebook and pen are part of my essential life support gear on the road. Have you ever gone to a shipper and the first thing they ask is, what's your trailer number, driver? At this point, you're just glad you found the place. You had to race to get there on time. You can't remember what you had for breakfast, let alone trailer numbers. So I write information like that down in my little black book, along with plate numbers, billing info, and maybe the spot I dropped the trailer in. And the time. I remember back in grade 5, I had this teacher, dyed-in-the-wool, who insisted on all his class go out after the first day of school and purchase a fountain pen to use in class. No kidding, a fountain pen. This guy was from way back. My mom was a teacher herself and thought this was really stupid. She could see the students squirting each other with ink. After talking to him, he relented and allowed the students, if they wished, to buy cartridge pens. These have the ink in a small cartridge that you put into the pen. So there you have it, a little bit of trivia from my past. Maybe the pen and ink thing will work. He says, P.S. I don't reckon you're going to find fountain pens for sale at Love's. No, probably not. But yes, I have done this as long as I can remember. Actually, my nephew found one of my old ones here in the truck, my eldest nephew, Jake, and he was like, oh, cool, man. He goes, man, you can go back over your whole career and look and see where all the different places you've been. And I thought, yeah, I could if I kept them, but I don't know why I would ever want to do that. I remember early in my career, I was thinking I would take all kinds of videos and all kinds of notes and things like that, about where I had gone and maybe even drawn out details on a map and stuff. And then I quickly realized that I wasn't going to care after this career. I was not going to care. Of course, when I first started out, I thought I was only going to be in it for 3 years too. So, that shows you how smart I am. Anyway, I use a pen and paper. Yeah, I write down. I have one of those little notebooks big enough to, just slide it in my pocket. I write down the my load number, the shipper, the time it's supposed to pick up, my trailer numbers, delivery and delivery time, and any pickup numbers or anything like that I need, and the mileage. So I keep all my mileage on that sheet. Once I verify that it's right, payroll, that can be trashed. So anyway, yeah, always do that. And I do write the plate number, not my trailer number, because quite honestly, hardly anybody ever wants it. But I do have my my tractor plate number written down in the notebook where I'm not going to tear the piece off, like inside the front of the notebook. So I have that easily accessible anytime I need it. Yep, great idea. Pen and paper. Imagine that. Thanks for writing in, Dave. Appreciate it. And hey, now that you're doing audio for Trucker Grub, there's no reason why your other comments can't be audio, right? Just messing with you. I'll take them any way I can get them, Dave. Hey, you remember in the last episode, Anthony wrote in and was asking about driving a truck as someone who didn't really know how to drive a car very well. He's had a license for 16 years, but he'd never really driven a car very many times because he lives in a big city and has good public transit. Anyway, I gave him some advice on that, and it actually extended into choosing trucking schools. And Michael writes in, and he wanted to share a little thing here. He says, Todd, on the Anthony email, there's something you forgot when choosing a driving school. Okay, Michael, what is it? He says some states now have a restriction of no manual transmission equipment, CMV, commercial vehicle. We have this restriction in Texas. So if a potential CDL driver takes their driver test in an automatic transmission tractor, they will only be able to drive an automatic tractor when they get their license. It sucks that some of the driving schools are using strictly automatic tractors. Some of the trucking companies don't have an automatic tractor fleet. Yep, you're right about that, Mike. I've always advised, I didn't in this last bit, you're right, I forgot to mention that to Anthony, but I did in a previous podcast somewhere along the way, probably back here in the feedback section. I have mentioned before that, I would advise people not to train in a truck that is automatic, and if that's what your school is offering, don't do it. because there's so few companies you'll be able to work for on the way out. So anyway, Michael, I appreciate you writing in and straightening me out about this. I certainly didn't know it was that's the way it was in Texas. I honestly don't know if Missouri is or not my home state. I should know, but I don't. But hey, we know it for Texas at least. So thank you for that, Michael. I really appreciate it. Hey, 2 more and we'll be all caught up. Hey, this one is from Ab, just AB. I don't know what to call this person. Anyway, it's a short one. You remember last time we talked about, oh, good grief, I can't remember who it was. It was Allie. Yeah, Allie. She was talking about TruckerDump 95, 4 reasons that trucker might be tailgating. You know, she was telling us the tale of how the trucker tailgated her in the middle of the night when she was doing above the speed limit and everything. Well, I got another one of those from Ab, and actually, it's worse. Wow. I can't believe this happened. Anyway, he writes, today I was tailgated on my little 100cc scooter by a big truck. No way to speed up. The single lane had 2 cars ahead, and there was a large, I had to look up the word he uses. It's some foreign word, but it basically means like a oversized load was up ahead, so he couldn't do anything. He says he was on a major road, and he asked him to back off, and the trucker actually came even closer, less than 10 feet away from this little scooter. And he did that for 7 miles. He says, the bastard. Yes, I would agree with you, Ab, that guy is a bastard. That is not cool at all. I mean, God, what an idiot you'd have to be. You know, you'd barely have to tap someone on a scooter and they could easily die from that. Man, that's so messed up. Sorry about that, Ab. I wish I could apologize for all truckers, but some people are going to be stupid, and there's nothing you can really do about it. And he wrote back and he said, hey, Todd, thanks for your support. My experience is that there are a lot of dangerous people on the road, from pedestrians to truckers and everything in between. It's not the vehicle, but the person who uses the road. A good road user always keeps in mind the safety of all other road users. Some people think that decent driving is only necessary to pass the driving license exam. Good luck and drive safe. Ab. Well, you know, that's a good point. A car is just a car, or a scooter is just a scooter. You can be as bad or as good as you want on it. And I know this is a politically hot topic, but I would say the same thing about guns. Just saying. And there go half my listeners. Wow. I'm not very bright. And let's finish up with a quickie from Martin. He was listening to, or reading, TruckerDump 130, How Much Should Truckers Bend the Rules? This is the one where I was talking about company policies and how you can sometimes bend them a little bit to work to your advantage, and sometimes they get bent against you. He says, my only fear would be getting in trouble for working the system, but I would probably do things just as you are. The weekend system is totally set up against you, mileage-wise. Yeah, what he's talking about is how, you know, my company has this rule where they will pay you weekend pay. I can't remember. I think it's $75, something like that, if you get less than 500 miles from the weekend. But what they do is they count all miles that you either deliver or get dispatched as miles. So if I deliver a load at, you know, just after midnight on Friday night, all of those miles go on show as the weekend, even though I delivered it 5 minutes after midnight. Same way if, you know, I get dispatched on, you know, Sunday night at 11:55, if I get dispatched on a load, all those miles go on to the weekend too, even though, you know, I'm clearly only going to be able to run 5 minutes of it, if that, because I got a pre-trip even, you know, so I won't get any miles. But that's the way they consider it. And, you know, I get it. They just have to lay out some rules and some guidelines. And sometimes you get screwed. Sometimes you don't. Anyway, you're right. It is totally stacked against me. Honestly, though, you know, like I told him, I don't worry about breaking the rules that much because I do it so rarely that if they do call me out, it's usually like, hey, Todd, you know, that's not the way this works. That's not the way this is designed. And I'm like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. A slap on the wrist is about all I ever get, so why not use it if I can? Well, I guess that about wraps it up. I'd like to thank Nick for submitting Trucker Grub, and Driver Dave, Michael, Ab, and Martin all for their emails and their feedback. Appreciate it. And now I'm completely out of feedback, so I'm relying on you guys to have some comments on this podcast that you're listening to right now. Write in. I ask for lots of feedback on this one, so write in and share your thoughts. TruckerDump@gmail.com. Well, I guess we ought to wrap this puppy up and stick a stamp on it, right? Let's get out of here. Okay, I asked for lots of feedback, so get on it, folks. Head on over to abouttruckdriving.com for everything I do. You can leave your comments, fill out the survey, check out the ebooks, download free stuff like the full intro and outro songs, and lots more. Or you can shoot me an email at truckerdump@gmail.com. Hey, if you're digging the podcast, please go subscribe in whatever podcast app you're using. And leave a review on iTunes if you got a second. It really helps bring new listeners in. And you know what else helps bring the listeners in? You inviting them! And here's one last reminder to do the survey so you have a chance at winning a Trucker Dump t-shirt. Well, as always, thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe, stay out of my way. Hey there, Todd McCann here from the Trucker Dump Podcast. In today's show, we're going to talk about some recalls. We're going to talk about some emission systems that's going on. Hey there, Todd McCann here from the Trucker Dump Podcast. In today's show, we're going to talk about some recalls. There's some new emission systems out there, some truck parking issues, and have you heard of this new... But hey, at least we don't have to say receipts. But hey, at least we don't have to say receipts. So anyway, Saturday morning, these 50 bobtails are on their way out of D.C. They're on I-95, and they're heading back down to Fredericksburg. Wow, easy for me to say. So anyway, a 2012 study by the Mental Health Nursing Journal found that 27% of truck drivers reported experiencing Type, Todd, type. Or perhaps they're expecting me to be ready to drive an envelope. I need some water. You know, there's numerous other jobs that make my driving job possible, but we don't have time to go into great detail. Here's a list of unsung heroes who keep the trucking What's that? I feel like I got too many boogers on my nose.